Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So deep dive for the makers out, and I know a lot of you are quite hyped and excited to get this bad boy Reed Richards into the game. But first, let's try and deduce whether he's going to be any good. So we have the deep dive and the full abilities list as well. And he's kind of reminding me of, let's say, Jacobkanda Bastion version 3.0. Again, reverse controls immunity, as in the psychic shielding, and full-on reverse control immunity. He can't crit, and in this case, he's neuroshock immune. So he's obviously going to be targeting much of the same matchups, largely, majority of the mutant class. But obviously, there are interesting spins, similarities to OG Mr. Fantastic as well. And let's first of all go over his core rotations and pre-fights, and then break down the rest of his abilities and kabams right up of him. So he has access to Instant Siphon, which improves the amount of burst damage champions do. Cowardice, which can disable some mutant champions completely as well, as, is useful to reduce and mitigate the block damage. And Special Power Drain, which will help you be more aggressive in the fight as well. It will work in a way when opponent throws a special attack, a remainder of their power gets drained effectively, I believe. So, we have Contingency Plan, that is his SIG ability. I do think he's perfectly viable unawakened. So that is a massive good news. Because, yeah, you can just get him and he's going to be fine. Because you do get the await charges, which will basically get consumed very fast. Because whether you use those special attack await charges or not, they will disappear. But other than that, offensively, there's just like a fairly mid-level energy vulnerability that last too long. So I think overall he's going to be perfectly capable unawakened. Actually, let's check out that pre-fight itself. So he does have the Kate version of a parry where you evade and then passively stun. And if you're awakened, at that point you also inflict energy vulnerability. But the point is that passive stun obviously will be giving you a fair amount of easy openings, let's just say. And with that ability, I actually think he should be fairly good Zola counter as well, as most of his damage is coming from the plasma detonations, which is not, subject to cowardice, for example. And the entire idea is you'll have level 1, level 2 rotations. You want to occasionally knock the opponent down. Your heavy attack will also inflict heal block for 8 seconds. Once you throw your level 1, you place a mine on a field, and then you want to trigger it. And especially you want to trigger it with your level 2. At longer fights, you want to go for level 3 because it kind of gives your mine no cooldown, and then you can just keep on bursting opponents fairly significantly. But in general, it is going to be a level 1, level 2, fairly set rotation champion. Overall, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea for sure. It is not like a fairly generic playstyle. He does have his rotation limitations again, considering that not only how very set rotation for him, you also need to be mindful of the spacing and space in the fight, which does not make it easier to use. But let's actually go through all of his abilities and then see what's going to happen with him. So prestige wise, it's nothing significant. It's not great. It's not awful. It's not great. Survivability 3. He's not the chunkiest lad. He's not a glass cannon either. Damage 4. Fair enough, he didn't seem to have like insane amounts of damage. Ease of use 2. I don't necessarily think he's going to be that hard to use. It's more that you need to know what you're doing. Utility 4.5. He does have a fair amount of it. And defender strength, he's not much of a defender. So let's move on. Attacker summary. Utilize pre-fights. Use special 1. Force opponent through the plasma mine. Use well-timed blocks and charge heavy attack. And then reduce the recharge time on your plasma mine. Hit opponent in the plasma with special 2 or temporarily empower it with special 3. Basically, it's again level 1, level 2 rotation. Defender summary. Immune to neuroshock. Not that many champions rely on neuroshock, but it's something to keep in mind. First officially immune neuroshock immune champion. Then avoid the plasma mine placed on special 1. Even if you don't avoid it, it damages significantly nerfed on defense. Make a stuns opponents when he awaits their basic attacks. Okay, that's not typically an issue. And when awakened, use heavy attack to remove special await charges. That is fairly significant. If you're going to be using fighting the maker, you do want to get rid of those special await charges. Right, so abilities. Let's break it down fully. The maker has altered his being, developed and immunity, neuroshock and reverse controls. That's, fairly standard now. because of Jean Grey and Onslaught featuring reverse controls in their kits, and it becoming more popular for tech champs to be immune to that. Immunity in Neuroshock is kind of like long time coming. We do have Onslaught, we do have Captain Britain, we do have Jean Grey now, that all utilize Neuroshock as a defensive mechanism, and it is their dot of choice. This is the first immune champion to that. The Maker hates luck. He cannot land critical hits, and all personal effects and the stun from the Parry Master have 125% ability accuracy. It means he's domino safe. It means he will be a domino counter as well. And can't land critical hits. Again, it's fairly common for tech champions. And his plasma damage will also scale with crit damage rating, so that's going to be relevant a bit later. But planning charges, 8, so this is his pre-fights. Effectively, they work almost exactly the same as Mr. Fantastic. So the Mega Stats, each quest is 4. In the pre-fight menu, you can choose to activate all 3, or whichever ones you want. Then these are inflicted even if a different champion enters the fight. However, there will be penalties if unsuitable champions enter. So the Maker's teammates help progress his plans. For each fight he or his teammate wins, you gain 1 charge. Again, for Balgons, it's not going to be super relevant. You're just going to activate all 3. But in general, as long as you win a fight, you're going to get 1 pre-fight back on the Maker. So that's different. Planned Obsolescence. Pre-fight passives max 1 each. They all have 15-second duration and are refreshed when the opponent's knocked down. Number 1, inflict 45% special power drain. Inflict 14% instant siphon. Inflict 20% cowardice. These potency is halved unless the attacker is a tech champion or is one of the Maker's outgoing synergy partners. So this is fairly significant. Unlike Mr. Fantastic, where you could just apply the pre-fight and enter the fight with anybody, these will be significantly less potent unless you use a tech champion or one of his synergy champs. But you can still use them, and in some cases, just having a cowardice is all you need. For instance, on mutant, so they're not unusable for random champions either. Also, planned obsolescence potency scales with the rarity of the Maker. That's the same as Mr. Fantastic. 7 star is going to have the best pre-fights. Also, tactical evasion. When the Maker would perform a well-timed block against a basic attack, he evades the attack instead. Discussed that. When the Maker evades basic attack, inflict passive stun for 3 seconds. And stun is removed when the opponent is struck twice. When the stun would be inflicted, the stun and his evade go on a short cooldown for 8 seconds. That's fairly standard there. Heavy attack. This is quite significant. Heavy attacks do not add to the Maker's combo meter. Final hit pauses the Maker's planned obsolescence passives for 5 seconds and inflicts a heal block debuff for 8. Now, this heal block duration is actually quite short. I'm not the biggest fan of it. We have way, way, way better heal blocks in the game, so take it for what you will, but it is certainly not the best available heal block in the game, I'll put it like that. I mean, it is going to be fairly handy because, with a passive stun, it shouldn't be too hard to apply and it should be fairly present. But I doubt you can manage like 100% consistent uptime. And it could be an issue because everything else aside from this is a debuff. I do feel like they should have made this into a passive as well. Because if you go passives, you might as well kind of stick with it. But this being a debuff, in my opinion, is a fairly big issue as well. Especially when you're going to use Maker against champs that, shrug off the odd debuff here or there. Or you're going up against something like Masochism, for instance. Because for most part, with Maker, you would be able to avoid triggering Masochism. And work with your passives. But now, you can't really do that. Because you have to throw your heavy attacks. And when you do, you're going to be triggering that. So, I think this is actually a bigger deal than most people realize it. And I really don't like that it's a debuff. Anyways, the final hit causes an instant plasma, dealing 2k energy damage multiplied by the Maker's critical damage multiplier. So, again, higher critical damage rating, more damage you cause with the heavy attack. And you're going to be throwing a fair amount of them. So, Special Attack 1 basically does nothing aside from employ a mine. And that mine is kind of a core of his kit. If the opponent moves onto the plasma mine, it triggers, inflicting an instant plasma, dealing 4/7 to energy damage multiplied by the Maker's critical damage multiplier. As defender, deal 1% of this damage. So that's quite significant because it's you know, you're still not going to want to be re-triggering it, but it's not going to be anywhere near as punishing, like, as you would think. So he's not going to be a great defender. We can kind of clearly see that. The Plasma Mine needs to recharge after triggering. The Plasma Mine recharges while the Maker is charging his heavy attack and by small amount when either champion struck. So again, you will want to be throwing your heavies, basically. And triggering the Plasma Mine inflicts 10% suppression passive on the opponent for 30 seconds, max stack 6. It's nice. Opponent gets less power, you can be more aggressive. And again, it is a passive. While suffering from one of the Maker's suppressions, they're also inflicted with 75% power reroute passive. Effectively means that you increase your own combat power rate by the amount you reduce your opponent's. So it's kind of neat. You're going to have, you know, again, similar to Mr. Fantastic in a sense, where you also reduce the opponent's combat power rate and increase your own. He has that built in, a weaker version of it, if you will, in his kit. Now I have special attack 2, Elastic Gatling. On activation, remove the recharge. This is super important because with the level 2, you do not need to wait for your mine to recharge. If the opponent is not blocking, triggering the Plasma Mine during this attack overcharges it, increasing its base potency by 200%, plus an additional 40% for each personal suppression on the opponent. Again, you gain these suppressions by triggering the mine. Gain 1 planning charge when triggering an overcharged mine, plus 1 extra for every 3 personal suppressions on the opponent. So it is, again, going to be his main source of damage here. You want to make sure you knock opponent over the mine with your special attack in order to deal, you know, his main source of damage for the most part. Special attack 3, again, this is largely just for longer fights. Re-trigger the Maker's selected pre-fights. That's fine. And end of this attack, the Maker moves an existing Plasma Mine behind his opponent and empowers it for 12 seconds. Empowered Plasma Mine automatically recharges in every half second. So this is actually quite significant because with this, you can trigger your mine continuously, not only doing damage, but also stacking up your suppression, significantly reducing opponent's combat power rate and increasing yours as well. So this might be a more viable rotation than it initially looks like. It's typically you kind of want to avoid level 3s on the champions. This seems like a very powerful level 3. It'll be interesting to see, you know, at which point this is the way to go, opposed to level 1, level 2 rotation. But yeah, it is quite strong level 3. So signature ability, we kind of discussed it in a bit, but now we have better context for it. So when the Maker's tactical evasion stun fails to be inflicted or is removed before its duration expires, inflict a non-stacking energy vulnerability passive and gain stun immunity for 4 seconds. Now you're going to be triggering this constantly whenever you trigger evade, because again, you're going to be striking the opponent, that stun is going to be expiring prematurely, and you're going to be getting this energy vulnerability. So it works fairly well, increasing the damage from heavy attacks. If you want to increase your Plasma Mine detonation damage, then that's going to be a bit more, you know, finicky operation there, because it is not a long period of time there. But this also helps you against a few nodes like Stunning Reflection, which is kind of cool, because you can still evade opponent's attack. You're going to attempt to stun them, it's going to fail. They're going to stun you, but you're going to be stun immune. So it's not bad. It's kind of with Lumitrix in one of the previous Stunning Reflection metas, where you could still effectively use him freely because of that stun immunity. So the Maker starts each fight with 1 special evade charge that is consumed to evade a hit during special attack. This does not trigger during a well-timed block. Gain 1 extra charge for every 60 signature levels. And it is what it says. Unless you want to parry opponent's special attacks, these will disappear very quickly in the fight. They're mainly for kind of like short fights, not like as a reliable, sustainable safety net for him. Remove all special evade charge when struck by heavy attack. This is what you will want to do when fighting against Maker. You will want to land a heavy attack against him before you throw your specials. And gain a special evade charge when Plasma Mine is triggered during the Maker's special attacks. Again, this is nowhere near enough for you to kind of sustainably use this evade in order to dodge specials. So there we go. Synergy bonuses, obviously synergies with Dr. Doom, Superior Iron Man. At the start of each fight, when activating special attack 3, inflict a non-stacking and snare passive for 15 seconds. Just like an additional passive basically for him. I actually think this is a downgrade for Dr. Doom. Heavy attacks can no longer crit, but instead they gain 40% attack rating. I genuinely don't know who this is, like, making that better. I think you'd rather have a chance to crit on heavies. Okay, Superior Iron Man, knocking down the opponents with heavy attack, grants non-stacking superior cruelty buff. That's kind of neat. I know this, he has a Council of Reed synergy, effectively where he functions as a copy of Reed Richards. Again, I don't think is, super relevant in most cases. The Maker debuffs last 25% longer. It's kind of funny because he only inflicts heal block. It would work on his parry stun, but you're mainly going to be using a passive stun anyways. But yeah, I think it's meh. And while Force Field is active, gain 14% combat power rate. That's fine. The only good bit here, I think, is Human Torch maintains his max temperature for 4 seconds longer. I think that's quite helpful and significant. And then the Maker also has access to plasma debuffs whenever he triggers Plasma Mine for over 8 seconds. But again, I don't think it's a meaningful source of damage. So for Human Torch, I think it's kind of nice. And yeah, the rest of the synergies don't really do much. But not that synergies are super relevant. Recommended masteries, parry, stupefy, color tech, cruelty, obviously. Not that anybody will seriously start maining color tech, I don't think. And recommended stat focus, critical damage rating, because that actually increases the plasma damage. And therefore, even though it says recommended Battlecast relic is vision, because, it synergizes with the heal block that you have. I do think in general use, once the StatCast relics become active, you will just want to put on anything that improves his critical damage rating in order to improve his plasma damage, plasma mine damage. And defensive stat focus armor rating, sure. So that is the Maker. And realistically, he actually, I don't know what's the best way to put it. He does have a lot in his kit, but at the same time, he feels extremely familiar and somewhat basic as well, just because we are so used to Mr. Fantastic. So we will be able to, carry him for pre-fights in specific cases as well. His pre-fights will be easier to replenish than Mr. Fantastic's without actually having to use him, which is, better, which is an upgrade. His target list of champions will likely, be smaller because you do not want to have your pre-fights halved. But as a champion himself, it really will come down to damage. If he can finish out, majority of the fights in level 1, level 2, rotation, especially against champions that are perhaps a rank higher than he is, then he's going to be good. Because that's kind of one of the issues with Bastion as well, is that he doesn't punch up very well. If he's, doing equal ranks, he's fine. If he's punching down, he's kind of good. And that is going to be fairly significant, because realistically, his rotation is fairly rigid. There's not a lot of room for flexibility. You know exactly what you have to do. There's no, creativity. You need to knock the opponent down. You do need to throw your level 1 whilst the opponent's close to the corner. You need to, make sure he moves over the mine, go for level 2. It's not one of those free-form, free rotation type characters, which you do get fairly seldom these days, to be honest. So, I like the Maker by the looks of it. I'm not sure I'm going to be a fan of using the Maker. He doesn't scream like a fast-paced, fun champion to me. At the same time, I do think he could be good if his damage holds up. Because again, reverse controls immunity, neuroshock immunity is fairly big these days. The fact that he doesn't crit obviously is going to be helpful. The pre-fights access is beautiful because you have access to those effects from the very first second of the fight, which is extremely important. And then if you do take a look at the mutant class itself, I think he's going to do a great job countering, most of it. He's obviously a domino counter. He is going to be good against dust as well, because, his heavy attacks as well. I don't think it was mentioned there, or maybe I skipped it, but they do not increase his combo meter, which is kind of funny. But there's nothing stopping him from annihilating dust, for instance. And since he doesn't crit, obviously he should be quite good against gentle, because again, energy damage, gentle is not particularly great against that, and you're not super aggressive with him, so I think he should be good against gentle as well. Obviously, he's going to be good against Captain Britain, so I think just about all of the relevant mutant defenders he will counter, which is a good sign. But then again, moving on other classes, I think he can be viable against some of the champions there. Against Bullseye, he's not going to be the greatest. Obviously, no bleed immunity, no stopping their weight. But somebody like Yelena, he doesn't modify his attack in any way. Obviously, he doesn't have access to Daunted, so he's going to do 60% of his damage, but he should be, you know, viable against Yelena, I think. Maybe a bit on the slower side. And who else we have in skill class that's kicking in defense? In tech class itself, again, because of his passive stun and reliance on heavy attacks, and him not relying on a big damage and specials, he should be a very good Zola counter, which I think is a fairly good plus. And who else do we care about in tech class? And I don't think he's going to be particularly great against Red Skull, because Red Skull has massive energy resistance. You know, against Sentinel should be good, because he, you know, doesn't really care about critting at all and does the damage with plasma, so that should work fine. And then looking at science class, you know, somebody like Thing again, because of the way he does damage, he should be fine. I don't think he's gonna be great against Photon though. Against Mystics, he has like no buffs at all whatsoever. So, you know, could in theory be viable against some of the Mystic defenders, and Cosmic's obviously probably not going to be his. So matchup wise, I think he looks fairly solid. Obviously, we do need more time and test with him, but it's quite likely that he will be fairly relevant, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about